It's a dark, quiet night. A young couple decides to drive out to a secluded spot, a popular lover's lane tucked away in the woods. The air is still, and the moonlight filters through the trees, casting eerie shadows. The couple is enjoying their time together, the radio quietly playing music in the background, when suddenly the program is interrupted by a breaking news bulletin. The announcer's voice, tense and urgent, warns listeners that a dangerous criminal has escaped from a nearby institution. He's described as a man with a hook for a hand. His left hand, replaced by a sharp metal hook after a tragic accident years ago. The reporter emphasizes this man is highly unstable and should not be approached under any circumstances. The girl, already uneasy in the remote location, begs her boyfriend to leave. "Let's go," she says, glancing nervously out the window at the surrounding darkness. The boyfriend, wanting to play it cool, tries to reassure her. "We're fine. Nothing's going to happen," he says. But as the girl continues to insist, he eventually relents and starts the car. They're driving away when they hear a strange sound. Scraping noise against the car. The girl is startled and turns to look, but they don't see anything. "It's probably just a branch," the boyfriend says, though he grips the steering wheel a little tighter. The uneasiness hangs in the air until they finally reach her house. As the girl steps out of the car, she suddenly screams. "Ah!" The boyfriend runs to her side of the car, and there, hanging from the car door handle, is a rusted metal hook. It's unmistakable. Someone or something had been there, watching them, maybe even trying to open the door. And just like that, they realize how close they came to danger. The story ends, but it's a chilling reminder to trust your instincts and avoid isolated places, because you never know who or what might be lurking in the shadows. It was a quiet evening, the kind where the silence seems to wrap around you like a heavy blanket. You are home alone, settled in your favorite chair, enjoying the solitude. The soft hum of the television in the background kept you company as you flipped through the pages of a book. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, the occasional rustle of leaves breaking the stillness. Then came the knock. It was soft at first, almost hesitant, as if whoever was on the other side wasn't sure they should be there. You froze, the sound pulling you out of your peaceful moment. Checking the time, you saw it was far too late for visitors. Slowly, you stood and moved towards the door, your footsteps muffled against the carpet. As you approached, you hesitated, your hand hovering over the doorknob. Something didn't feel right. Peeking through the peephole, you saw them. 2 children standing on your porch. They couldn't have been older than 10 or 11. A boy and a girl, their heads tilted slightly downward. They weren't dressed for the chilly night air, and their clothes seemed off, outdated, like they had stepped out of an old photograph. Cautiously, you open the door, just a crack. "Can I help you?" you asked, your voice steady despite the knot tightening in your stomach. The girl looked up first, her face pale and expressionless. "Can we come in?" she asked softly. Her voice was flat, devoid of the innocence you'd expect from a child. "We need to use your phone," the boy added, his head still tilted downward. "Please let us in. It won't take long." A chill ran down your spine as the girl raised her head fully, and that's when you saw them. Her eyes, completely black. No whites, no iris, just an endless, soulless void. The boy followed suit, lifting his gaze to reveal the same unsettling emptiness. Every instinct in your body screamed at you to shut the door and lock it and never look back. But there was something almost hypnotic about their presence, as though they were trying to compel you to do as they asked. Your hand trembled on the doorknob. "Please," the little girl said again, her tone more insistent. "You have to let us in." Snapping out of whatever spell they had cast on you, you slammed the door shut, locking it hastily. Your heart pounded in your chest as you stepped back, listening for any sign of movement outside. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. Then the soft sound of footsteps retreating into the night. The next day, you checked the porch, but there was no sign of them, no footprints, no evidence that they had ever been there at all. But you knew what you saw, and you knew one thing for certain. You would never, ever open your door late at night again. It was a cold, stormy night, and a young girl named Sarah was home alone. Her parents had gone out for the evening, leaving her to watch over the house. The rain pattered against the windows, and distant thunder echoed through the night. Although the house was quiet, she wasn't completely alone. Her faithful dog, Max, kept her company. Max was a large, gentle dog, and having him nearby always made Sarah feel safe. Before heading to bed, Sarah double-checked that all of the doors and windows were locked. Satisfied that the house was secure, she turned out the lights and climbed into bed. Max took his usual spot on the floor beside her, and she reached down to give him a reassuring pat. He responded by licking her hand, his warm tongue a comforting reminder that she wasn't entirely alone. As the storm intensified, Sarah woke suddenly in the middle of the night. A faint, dripping sound echoed through the house. Drip, drip, drip. It seemed to be coming from the bathroom. Too scared to check, Sarah decided she'd deal with it in the morning. She reached down to feel Max, and once again his tongue licked her hand, comforting her. The sound continued, persistent and eerie. Drip, drip, drip. It grew harder to ignore, and Sarah's unease began to build. She kept telling herself, "It's just the faucet leaking. Nothing to be afraid of." Reaching down, Max licked her hand again, and she felt a small sense of relief. Morning finally came. With the first light of dawn streaming through the window, Sarah summoned the courage to investigate the dripping noise. She walked toward the bathroom, her heart pounding in her chest. The sound grew louder with each step. Drip, drip, drip. Pushing open the door, she froze. Her breath caught in her throat. There, hanging from the shower head, was her beloved dog, Max. Blood dripped from his lifeless body, pooling on the tiled floor. In utter shock, Sarah stumbled backward, her mind racing. That's when she saw it, the message scrawled on the bathroom mirror, and what appeared to be blood. The words sent an icy chill down her spine. Humans can lick too. The realization hit her like a tidal wave. The comforting lick she'd felt during the night hadn't been from Max. Something or someone had been in the room with her, lying in wait, hidden in the shadows. Needless to say, Sarah never spent the night alone again. It was late, and the highway stretched endlessly before her. Lisa was driving for hours, the glow of her headlights cutting through the darkness. She was tired, but the thought of reaching home kept her going. The gas station she pulled into was nearly deserted, its flickering neon sign casting an eerie light over the pumps. As she filled her tank, she couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching her. She glanced around, but saw nothing unusual. The attendant inside the station waved at her, and she gave a smile, polite wave back. Once the tank was full, she paid quickly and got back in her car, eager to be on her way. The road was quiet, and the hum of the engine was almost soothing. But as she drove, she noticed something strange. A truck appeared in her rearview mirror, its headlights glaring. It was following her closely, too closely. She frowned, wondering why the driver didn't pass her on the empty road. Suddenly, the truck's headlights flashed, and its horn blared. Startled, Lisa gripped the wheel tightly. The truck swerved behind her, its lights flashing again. It was as if the driver was trying to get her attention. Panic set in. Was this some kind of road rage? Or worse, was she being targeted? She pressed the gas pedal, her car speeding down the highway, but the truck stayed with her, relentless. Every few minutes, the driver would flash his lights and honk the horn. Lisa's heart raced. As she tried to think of what to do next, she spotted an exit up ahead and decided to take it, hoping to lose the truck on the smaller roads. The exit led to a quiet suburban street, and for a moment she thought she was safe. But the truck followed, its headlights still glaring. Desperate, she pulled into the driveway of a well-lit house and leaned on her horn, hoping to wake the occupants. The truck stopped behind her, and the driver jumped out, running toward her car. Lisa locked her doors, terrified. The man reached her window, shouting and gesturing wildly. "Get out of the car," he yelled. "There's someone in the back seat." Her blood ran cold. Slowly, she turned to look behind her. In the dim light, she saw the glint of a knife and the shadowy figure of a man crouched in the back seat. Before she could react, the truck driver yanked open her door and pulled her out, slamming it shut behind her. The police arrived minutes later, alerted by the commotion. They found the man in the back seat, a wanted criminal who had been hiding in her car, waiting for the right moment to strike. The truck driver, far from being a threat, had been trying to save her life. Lisa never drove alone at night again. It began innocently enough. Claire stumbled upon the doll at a dusty antique shop while on vacation. It sat alone on a high shelf, its porcelain face framed by curly golden hair, and its eyes, glass and very lifelike, seemed to follow her as she moved about the room. She didn't know why, but something about the doll compelled her to buy it. The shopkeeper, an older woman with a wary expression, hesitated as she handed it over. "Be careful with this one," she said softly. Claire brushed it off with a laugh, chalking it up to the fragility of the doll. Once home, Claire placed the doll on a chair in her bedroom. It seemed harmless enough at first, even charming with a nostalgic way. But soon, strange things began to happen. Late at night, Claire would wake to the sound of faint giggles or the rustle of fabric, as if someone or something was moving in the room. At first, she dismissed it as her imagination, but then she started noticing the doll in places she hadn't left it. One morning, Claire woke to find the doll not in its chair, but sitting at the edge of her bed, its glassy eyes fixed directly on her. She felt a chill, but told herself there has to be a logical explanation. Still, she moved the doll to a storage box and shoved it into the back of the closet, hoping that would put an end to the strange occurrences. But the disturbances only grew worse. Doors creaked open on their own, lights flickered, and the whisper of childlike laughter echoed throughout the house. One night, she heard a soft thud from her closet. Gathering her courage, she opened the door and froze. The doll was sitting upright on top of the box, its once placid expression twisted into what looked like a malevolent grin. Claire, desperate, decided to get rid of the doll. She drove out to a remote wooded area, dug a shallow hole, and buried it. As she stood over the freshly turned earth, she felt a strange sense of relief. It was over, or so she thought. That night, Claire awoke to a familiar sound. the faint, high-pitched giggle. Her blood ran cold as she turned her head toward the chair. Sitting there, pristine and unmarred by dirt, was the doll. Its unblinking eyes seemed to gleam in the moonlight, and this time Claire could have swore she saw it move